Mrs. Ashford, I will get back to your question um, about the bus and the cross pollinating of the cohorts. I will talk about that at the end. Remind me if I forget. The non-essential furniture is going to be removed from the classrooms. When I talk about non-essential furniture, those are the things like the comfy reading areas, the comfy chairs, things like that that teachers may have in their reading nooks. These are areas that the students wouldn't be able to use, accounting of having to sanitize after each use. And it will allow us to keep the recommended 6 feet between the desk. Hand sanitizer stations will be available throughout the school building, hallways, entrances, classrooms. The classroom teachers will have hand sanitizer. We will be having wall-mounted hand sanitizers. We have already mounted one in the lower church by the door for use of camp. So we are starting to make those changes currently as the summer progresses. Supplies. I got it. To the windows being open, yes. Since our school building, the main school building does not have AC, we function with windows open all the time and the fans running all the time. The lower church will be on a schedule for opening their windows so that there is fresh air and filtration coming through. That is something that has been talked about with the facilities manager to make sure that that is possible for us to do. But that is definitely one of those things that fresh air is definitely a recommendation with buildings, and we are able to do that within our building. Supplies and other usually shared materials. When possible, each student will have their own individual supplies and a place to store supplies away from everybody else. We have not placed our supply order yet for the year, and so we will be looking at the students having and making sure that students have their own materials for activities that we are able to do that with. Anything that is a shared supply, we will sanitize after each use. That may include when the students go to, or when the art goes to the students, then if they're using a paintbrush, making sure that there's sanitation of those paintbrushes. Library, they are still encouraging students to check out books, but books will be quarantined for the length of time needed for the germs to be able to be sanitized off of the books without damaging the books. Toys and games, it's school. Kids need to learn with hands-on activities. Kids need to play games. They need to socialize. Teachers will disinfect and clean classroom toys daily. Kids will be washing hands and sanitizing their hands after using the toys and games. This includes the items that might be outside in their designated classroom bin. Traveling to other rooms, we're going to limit this. This goes back kind of to the honors math question, and disinfectant measures will be in place after each use. One of the questions is, will the water fountain be removed? We will be asking students to bring water bottles to school. The water fountains are currently turned off. And so with that in mind, we will have the students bringing water bottles to school. Obviously, just like when we turn them off back in March, we will have water bottles available if a student forgets. their water bottle so that it will be a disposable water bottle like you buy in the grocery store. Students will be discouraged from lending a pencil to someone else. We know how kind our students are and how they are, I forgot my pencil, I forgot my pen, but they will be discouraged from sharing those items with other students. For the large tables in kindergarten actually does not have tables. Kindergarten has individual desks. So the kindergarten room, they are already set up with individual desks and the teachers are already playing around with setting up the classroom with the distance. In the pre-K rooms, we will be spreading the students out at the tables so that they are able to have that distance with individual chair pouches to store their supplies so that they're not reaching across each other to get to supplies. With the guidance of playing games and socializing being 6 feet apart, I kind of go into that with recess in 2 slides. So I will talk about that in a moment because there are a couple of games that there's talk, they're putting together a booklet of games for schools to reference, especially for gym and for recess. But I do have, before that, I do have lunch. For the start of the school year, we will be having the students eat their lunch in their classrooms. And for safety reasons, the teachers will stay with, wrong side. The teachers will stay with them in their classrooms for lunch. The specials teachers will be assigned to outside lunch duty so that the teachers do get a break after the students are done eating. We are looking at ways that we might be able to social distance them in the gym and cafetorium for lunch, but that's going to require us to look at the schedule and to make changes to the timing of lunch. And so right now our plan is to have them in the classrooms until we figure that out. At this point, we have not had any information from NDS regarding changing the current lunch situation. I know the Archdiocese is encouraging people to pack their lunch. NDS, the way their lunch program works, they're individually packaged meals to begin with, which is the method for hot lunch that the Archdiocese is recommending. So unless NDS changes on us, the plan is to still be able to offer hot lunch to our students. Recess. The direction on the mask for recess came out yesterday. And that is that they do not need to wear masks at recess if they are with their cohort. Students will wash and sanitize their hands when they return from recess. Playground equipment will be disinfected after each use. We have a large property. And we will be able to spread the students out without any problems. Each class will have their own bin of playground toys. As I said, they will be disinfected. And we will use zones. So each class will be assigned a zone to maintain their cohort so that they are with their class still. Each zone will have various activities for the students to select from. Some games that students will be able to play and will probably have to rotate through the use is they're recommending non-contact sports like kickball, foursquare, and yes, even in the cohorts, how can they minimize exposure when they go home every day to unknown germs? That is a good point. We can do our best to keep the germ exposure at school at its lowest, but we don't know what they're doing or where they're going when they're at home. And that's not something I can figure out for each child. So we have to do our best, and that's where with the partnership and the communication, if there is somebody that may have been exposed to somebody else, we need to know that as a school, because we do have students who are susceptible to illness or have family members that are susceptible. So, and that's where that communication point comes in again, is that back and forth communication, just letting us know. But yeah, the cohorts, the idea of it sounds great, but there are definitely some ideas of it that there's definitely not a perfect way of doing it. We don't want to completely take all the fun out of school. Now, with that, there are obviously some virtual options. So this outlines the virtual learning, the who, the what, when, where, and how. This is just a general outline of it. If a child is homesick or a parent suspects that the child may be sick, they will have the option to join a class via Google Meet. Google Meet is similar to Zoom, but it interacts with the Google program and Google Classroom, which is the learning management system, a lot easier. In the case where a whole cohort has been dismissed from school because COVID has been identified, the entire cohort and the possibility of siblings. So if it happens in one child's class and there are kids in that class that have siblings, those siblings may also have to stay home for that time period, which then anybody that would have to stay home for the time period designated by the health department, the health officials that we are working with, they would be able to utilize distant learning. The students would follow a regular school day. So they would log on to they would log on for morning prayers. They would get on for all of their classes. I am working with Mrs. Sabatini to figure out what is the best way to have the teachers be able to do that. In a situation in which a parent feels working from home is beneficial, we will be allowing parents to make that choice where the child can stay home and log on and do the school day. In that